Here at the university, we have a building over here that's the music building. And when you want to study mathematics, you go to a different building, and then when you study the sciences, it's over here, and English over there. And of course, our American high schools are very much the same. We divide up these subjects into different rooms. But one of the things I'd like to explore tonight is the question of what do these things have to do with each other? Okay, what can an artistic creator do with mathematicians, with scientists, okay, in collaboration? Now, before I get into this, just a word of sort of, a little bit of admission here. As you hear me speak tonight, you're actually not hearing my natural speech. This is very much my artificial speech. Because I am a severe stutterer. And as I'm speaking to you right now, there's a part of my brain which is thinking about what I'm saying and looking at all of you and seeing if it makes sense to you, right? And then there's another very big part of my brain which is consciously controlling all the muscles that make words. And that control allows me to sound like this, okay? If I turn the control off, okay, it doesn't take very long before I would do that about every 3 or 4 words. That's my natural speech. This is my artificial speech. But prior to learning this control, the only time I could open my mouth without the stuttering was when I sang. Because singing circumnavigates this particular disability in the brain. Singing allowed me not only to just say what was on my mind, but it also allowed me to explore some of the deepest parts of my own self and communicate that to others. So as we're talking tonight about the connections between music and science, okay, this is not a metaphor for me. This is very real, okay, because musical harmonics resonate with the biology of my brain and allow me to do things that I can't do without it. And so suffice it to say for tonight that stuttering was something that silenced me. Music is something that gave me a voice. And it's because of that as a composer, I'm very interested in exploring these silent spaces, exploring these hidden beauties, hidden voices that exist within scientific data sets, the hidden voices that exist within the silence of nature, or in the case of tonight's piece of music, the silence of space. So if we look at this connection between music and mathematics and science, okay, it goes back a long way. From ancient times all the way up to the Renaissance, in many cases, music was just seen as another branch of mathematics. With the ancient Greeks, the motion of the planets and the moon and the sun in the sky, this harmonic dance that they do up in the sky was described as music of the spheres. Okay, not so much a musical composition, but rather a philosophical concept. Later on, the philosopher Plato took this notion of the heavens, brought it down to earth, and said, well, gee, it'd be a really good idea for every human being to spend the first 20 years of their life studying music. Because what that does is that it helps create harmony within the individual, harmony within the soul. And Plato said, how can you have harmony in your society if the individuals don't have harmony within themselves? On the other end of this great history, we look at a guy like Galileo. Okay, here's a guy who taught us a new way to look at the universe. But he was also a really good lute player. And his dad was a composer. And many of his scientific experiments actually could not have been done by a person without musical skills. So we see here a great heritage of marrying music and mathematics and science together. Okay, let's take a look at just a couple of these individuals that help us unpack the connection. There we go. Our friend Pythagoras. One of the ways that Pythagoras helps us understand this is this very simple sentence, this 3-word sentence, all is number. We can describe anything in our existence according to numbers. And if we can do that, that means we can see their relationships between them. So Pythagoras would tell us that numbers all by themselves, okay, the thing that we spend a lot of time in elementary school doing, okay, he would call arithmetic. If we put numbers in space, he would call geometry. Interestingly enough, Pythagoras would say if we put numbers in time, that's where we get music. And if we put numbers in space and time, that gets us astronomy. Okay, this marvelous notion that numbers themselves can bind together all these parts of our existence. Another one of our ancient Greek friends here, Aristotle, helps to unpack another part of this. That he told us that everything in our world has 2 components. Okay, one has an essence, this unchangeable thing that exists no matter what happens, and then has an accident, has the sort of temporary expression of what that essence is. Okay, so for me, Aristotle would say, there's something of Glenn as a baby that was his essence that still exists now. Okay, even though obviously the accident of my body, okay, has changed over time. But we can see here these 3 things, 3 different things, share the same essence. They share the same essence of right triangle-ness. Okay? But of course, we would want 3 different expressions of a right triangle because we need those expressions for different things in our world. If we're going to build a building and we want to show people what it looks like, we need a picture for that. If we're going to describe to them what that building's function will be, well, then we need words for that. And then, of course, if we want to calculate how much material we need to build it, that's where the math comes in. So if the essence of right triangle-ness can be described in a picture or in words or in a mathematical equation, why can't it be described in sound? And also, what new things might we learn about right triangle-ness by expressing it in sound? So this starts to get us into the world of the composer. Okay, how do we take this other thing and create music out of it? Now, composers have long looked toward nature for inspiration. Okay, the composer Smetana wrote this amazing musical picture of an unfolding river he called the Moldau. Gustav Holst takes us on a trip through the solar system in his orchestral piece called The Planets, a section for each planet in the solar system. Okay, but what are the strategies that a composer can use to connect things? First of all, okay, if we're going to make a musical picture, a musical narrative of something that already makes sound, well, then a composer can imitate that sound. So if we're doing a musical picture of a rainstorm, well, rain makes sound, so we have those instruments or those voices imitating that sound. Also, if our picture, our narrative, has a cultural context of some kind, then the composer can choose instruments or particular kinds of harmonies or melodies that reference that culture. Thirdly, if you're a composer and you have to write a piece of music about something that A, doesn't make sound, and B, has no cultural connection, what do you do? Okay. Here's where the translation of mathematics into music comes into play, because we can use this abstract process of embedding the numerical identity of something into a new piece of music. So last year, I had a great time with the European Space Agency. I had a chance to hang out with the orbital support group that flew the Rosetta orbiter. Okay, you may recall that the Rosetta mission did this astonishing thing. Okay, they flew a satellite for 9 years, and at the end of 9 years of flying this satellite, that satellite encountered a comet and placed a lander on it. An astonishing achievement for humanity. And we wanted to celebrate that achievement. Luckily, for the European Space Agency, they not only have an amazing bunch of mathematicians and astrophysicists, but they also have a choir. It's a really good choir. Okay, I haven't checked out to see if NASA has a choir yet, but the European Space Agency has one. Okay, and they're pretty good. And so we decided to write a piece for their choir. And so the orbital support group gave me a bunch of data. This is only one small portion of it. Data that expresses the day in which the orbiter encountered the comet. So the data looked like this. We see 7 columns. Okay, here on the first column, okay, this is something that they call barycentric dynamic time. Okay, this is essentially the time index of the mission from launch until the end. The next 3 parameters, okay, are the position vectors, which is the distance of the orbiter to the sun being a fixed point at which you can measure that voyage of the orbiter. And then the last 3 of these parameters are the velocity vectors. Okay? So we chose some of this data, okay, and decided to convert it into some musical notes. Here's how we do it. Okay? We can take any one of these data sets and look at what the maximum number is and what the minimum number is, and then divide that interval into equal intervals. Since we're doing music, well, there are 7 notes in a major scale: do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, and of course, do is the same as do. Okay, so it's just 7 notes, and so 7 intervals, which mathematicians call this converting a maximum and minimum into modulo 7. Once we had these intervals, we went back to the data set, plotted those pieces of data, okay, within modulo 7, and that gave us musical notes. And so 4 of those parameters, okay, give us the notes for the soprano, the alto, the tenor, or the bass, or in the case of the very opening of the piece, violin 1, violin 2, viola, and cello. So what we're going to hear in this piece of music, the very opening of it, is very much the raw translation of the data to the music. I didn't mess with it at all. We just did the calculation, and we put the notes up there. Okay. After that, we have a couple of variations that explore the drama and the emotion of this 9-year mission and these amazing people who did it. One extra thing I wanted to point out is, of course, that when we look at scientific data, a scientist will learn things about comparing the horizontal relationships of those numbers, and they'll also learn different things about the vertical relationships of those numbers. Well, musicians do the same thing. The horizontal relationship between those notes is a melody. The vertical relationship is the harmony. So with that, let's just take a couple minutes and listen to Rosetta variations on a day in space. So as we're left with this one example of what one musician did with one group of scientists, it comes back to the first question. Because we know these days it seems like there's a new scientific discovery that happens every week. Okay, we can barely keep up with new things that are happening with scientific discoveries all around the planet and also beyond. We know that, of course, if we have inventors and entrepreneurs, those people will respond to a new discovery by creating a new product that makes the world better. We know that elected officials can respond to a new discovery by looking for consensus out there to try to leverage that discovery for the greater good. We also know how each one of us in our daily habits can respond to a new discovery. I certainly know that when I was a kid, there was nothing called recycling, but there certainly is that today. But what is the thing that an artistic creator can do? What can we do in response to this unfolding scientific imagination of our time? I'd like to suggest that artistic creators, whether you're a musician, whether you're a painter, whether you're a dancer or an actor, that you can work with scientists to develop those images and symbols that not just communicate the nuts and bolts of the science to a wider public, not just wider, but also deeper. We have the tools to communicate what's happening with scientists, okay, in the depth and the drama of the emotion that is part of their lives. And I hope that as artistic creators, we can not only make the world a little bit more sustainable, but hopefully a little more beautiful. Thank you so much.